Okay, it's 9 a.m. I'm going to call to order the August 11th study sessions of the Costa Mesa Sanitary Districts. And do a roll call for us.
Thank you. Dr. Cheyenne Wright.
Here.
Dr. Nicole Wiltshire. Secretary Arthur Perry. Vice President Robert Wooten.
Here.
President Michael Schaefer.
Here.
Thank you.
Public comments. This is the time for those of you in the audience who would like to speak on items that are subject matter, jurisdiction, and are not listed on the agenda. We have no one. We have any virtual public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, items of study. Scott, always at our committee recommendation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Marissa Pareto will give us a report.
Good morning, President and Board. The district's agreement with CRNR includes liquidated damages provisions. And this is a penalty that may be assessed for failure to meet certain administrative or operational standards. The Solid Waste Ad Hoc Committee met twice to review and discuss the liquidated damages provisions. The proposed revisions are outlined in the staff report, and the attached red line exhibit provides details of the proposed changes. Overall, the revisions are intended to improve accountability, clarify expectations, and better align the provisions with customer service priorities. The committee generally supported the overall direction of the revisions and did provide clarification on a few specific items. The committee also emphasized that penalties should not be issued for circumstances outside of CRNR's control. Staff and CRNR are continuing to finalize the performance thresholds for rollout and valet service, large item, HHW, and Christmas tree collection. So you'll see on the red line, there's a few kind of blank areas. Those numbers will be filled in once we finalize those with CRNR. Today, staff is looking for more direction and feedback and direction. Following that direction, the final revisions will be incorporated into the contract exhibit. It will be reviewed by district council, and then it will come back to the board for consideration and approval. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available to provide more detail if the board has any questions.
Yes.
You have any updates for us?
I thought we had a good discussion on it.
Yeah, I kind of incorporated some of the discussion points that we have with the committee into the staff report, just some things that the committee asked us to kind of clarify, or make sure that we were addressing certain things in a way that was fair to both our customers and to CRNR.
The one of the things that I've always been concerned about is the collection reliability, and I think they've done some really good things about hitting the large item. Large item is the one I hear about most from my neighbors, and I think CRNR's done a really good job of narrowing that down. Like it's funny, all these years of being on this board and with the large item, I've used it. My neighbors have used it. Trucks come around usually earlier than the regular pickup, but when the trucks come around, there's rarely anything left, you know, from the resident. I'm sure you guys see that. So. But overall, I think we have a pretty good meeting with that. I guess I'd like to hear from Julie on what she has to say. If this is the time for that.
It's your call.
Okay.
It's your call.
Well, me. I was giving to you.
I have questions too, if maybe before
Yeah.
or after, it's totally fine.
Do you
I
want
would
to
say no.
go for us up here first? Okay. I guess I should defer to my senior colleague. Right here.
I think what he means is the older, more mature person.
No doubt.
I thought the meeting was good, you know, I had. From the meeting, I learned, how the process came about for so-called liquidated damages, which, as a matter of fact, we changed the name of that in the discussion.
We did discuss changing it. We haven't officially yet. We just want to check with legal counsel just to make sure there's no implications with changing it from liquidated damages to something else, but that is one of the discussion points.
And then there were a number of items, and I think staff highlighted most of them in the staff report, that since that policy was developed for performance objectives or liquidated damages or whatever you want to call it. It came from various places and there were probably 6 or 7 items that needed clarification. A lot of them around what President Schaefer said, delivery of services. There were also some emphasis on needing there were many items in that so-called performance process. And I think we only hit on probably 7 or 8 items that needed to be clarified or changed. It was informative to me to be on that ad hoc committee. I appreciate staff and CRNR's input. That's all.
Okay, so I just have a couple questions or like feedback on this, but in general. I'm glad we have this sort of clause in our contract, so. I see that we're adding some performance categories for collection reliability. How do we measure just standard pickups?
So just like a missed car
Or say
pickup?
somebody's missed and then. They get a call, they still complain to us that it didn't get picked up on time and that's how we're tracking it.
So right now, for just like a standard missed service, just missing your card, CRNR maintains a list of anything that's reported to them as a missed, and so we're looking at that in combination with things that are reported directly to us. A lot of times there is overlap, so we'll account for anything that's in our records, if it's already in CRNR system, we won't account for that, but it's through our logs of what's been reported to us or in CRNR.
Is there a time frame to correct that mistake before the fee is incurred, or it's just immediately upon?
For this particular one, if it's a miss, then it's it
Yeah, I guess
automatically
it's a
applies, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad we're gonna be tracking all the other ones, especially Christmas tree collections, quality. Clarifying that debris spills on cards must be cleaned on same day, that's great, I definitely support including that. Responsiveness to our residents. Yes, timeliness of submissions, yes, accuracy of billing, so can we talk about the additional card cost billing error, and like, can you play out for me how that would not only be affected in, rebating our customers directly, but then how does that manifest in liquidated damages?
Sure, for something like this, so if it's a billing error, if they were billed, it's not in accordance with our, our actual price list, then it would be 250 per account. So in this case, I think there was 12 or 1400 accounts that were misbilled, so there would be an assessment of $250 for each of those.
So just a one-time fee,
Right.
no matter when we discover and how long ago that billing error was, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think with any contract, it makes sense to have some sort of incentive for not making mistakes, especially because we are so contractually and long-term bound with this relationship, so. Increasing delayed responses to us, not to our customers. So just when there's delays to us.
Yes, is to
Okay.
respond to CMS with that one business day.
Can you educate me on what is outdated rollout specific vehicle deployment provisions for, so is that just
G3?
a cleanup? Yeah, I'm just looking at G. Remove outdated rollout specific deployment provisions, is that just a
So for that particular one,
language cleanup?
so it was basically saying that they needed to have trucks in place necessary for the 3-cart system. But because we've already passed that point, 3-cart program has been rolled out, all the trucks were provided at that point. It's just not something that we would assess any further because it was specific to that date.
Great. Is there anything proactive? I know we were talking a while ago about ensuring, CRNR helps us ensure that customers have all three of their cards, or can even be our eyes on the ground if one is missing or damaged. I wouldn't, how like accountable are they to that? Cause I worry that people are falling through the cracks. Of just they're not proactively reaching out, but they maybe are missing a card, but they have a damaged card, etc.
I don't know that, I would assume CNR, if they're out doing route audits and they notice that a card is significantly damaged and never, I assume they would put in a replacement request for that. And that is one of the provisions here, is to replace damaged cards within a timely manner.
Cool.
And our code enforcement officer can also report that as well. If he or she sees a damaged card, that person can report it as well.
Okay.
Or a neighbor,
I mean, I'm
a neighbor might report, hey, my neighbor not paying attention to their.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just speaking from personal experience that I didn't even, it's just one of those like things that get set on the back burner, I just had a trash can with no lid, which like I'll survive, and then they took care of it, you guys were in the meeting. But it just made me realize like, oh, I think normal people maybe don't realize how awesome we are, how awesome CRM is, that they'll get it done really quick and it's not a big deal. But, okay, and then obviously I'm excited about public education and outreach, and I'll kind of just allow that to be part of the later conversation in our ad hoc committee. And in general, I mean, this looks good to me. I'm a little bit curious about the history. I see we already have 2023, 2024. Do we have a 2025 estimate?
It's
Or
in progress.
we're in that window right now, okay. And that's common that like about a whole year later, we're evaluating for last
We
year.
actually adjusted the revision period, so this current period runs through the end of June of 2026, so it's gonna be a year and a half instead of a
Okay.
year to get us on the fiscal year schedule, so this year we'll have an additional 6 months, which takes additional time to.
Awesome. I guess my only other question would be like how these terms compare to other cities, other clients, if there's anything, are we below market on, or do they do any type of CPI adjustment to any of these as time goes on, et cetera? Yeah. Mr. Cunningham.
For you, can I have a question?
Sure.
How did we come up with 250 for this building? Who came up with that figure,
250 for which item?
that number D? Seems pretty excessive to me.
D for for accuracy of billing,
Yes.
250 per account. That was the amount that was set when the liquidated damages were initially put into the contract. I believe this was modeled after City of Newport Beach. So I would imagine that amount came from that model and then put into the contract.
Are there any other cities that accounts like this?
I know Newport Beach does. I'm not sure, Julie might be able to speak more on other any agencies that have liquidated damages in their contracts.
All those. Yeah.
Good morning, President Board. Just to start off, this is very common that we have liquidated damages or performance standard metrics in almost all of our contracts, and it's something we support. If we're doing our job correctly and we're picking everybody up when we should be, I have no problem with having any type of performance measures and penalties that go along with it. It's the right thing. I'll start on the last one. So yes, this and for Cheyenne, so it's very common, as we mentioned, we have liquidated damages in many contracts. Some of the penalties vary. Newport was probably one of the highest ones. That was the most newest template that we did in 2021, where we renewed that contract and then carried those over into CMSD. I will tell you, yeah, when you hear that number 250 and we had that billing error on the extra cards, it's usually intended to maybe be one-offs here and there. So yeah, that one's going to be really big for a change that the person that processes our increases missed. I presented originally two options. the board went with the one, she didn't see the changed file and went with the original one that I submitted to staff, and then we came back and said she didn't see it, so. All the credits were already issued, they're posted on the accounts, we did that, the district has the file, we show every customer impacted and the credit that they received. It's just the inconvenience of them getting that bill and the phone calls that generated, so. Yeah, it is meant to be like one-offs here and there, I don't think I thought about it, to be quite honest, that $250 and what that implication is, this one's gonna be worth it. It's a classy one. With that being said, I mean, we agreed to it, and, is what it is, I'll to accept it. I did wanna talk a little bit, because I wasn't sure, for Director Wright, your question, because I felt like it's two-part. It was something that I've been noticing, and I just had a meeting, actually, I'm writing my notes on my same page. I just had a meeting with the city of Costa Mesa last Friday. This is for our non-exclusive commercial franchise, and they brought all the haulers in. We were talking about, SB 1383, does every customer have their 3-container system, whether they use carts or they use bins? And it made me think about here, and for Director Wiltshire, at her facility, that was the same night that our day we talked about you not having your broken lid, she didn't even have organics at her property. So the question is, I don't think we put together a method or a requirement, does a strong letter go out that says you are required, if it's something that's billed by CMSD, and I think that was maybe my question that I had is, do I bring a couple of counts, I'm noticing that folks aren't using using an organics container, maybe they have one and keeping it behind. But I was gonna have you check, are you billing this, or are they being billed by us, and I was gonna check the lapses, but I know that when we rolled out Newport Beach for 2 years, we had 70 residential customers that just. We deliver their cart and they go illegally dump it in a park, because we were able to trace the serial numbers. And we had an issue, and then the city got involved, and they were sending letters directly to these residents saying, we are required by law, you have to have your container, this is what you should be putting in it, and we finally got it to 2 years to get out of luck. But I don't know that we have a process internally for our residential customers or the multifamily duplexes that are wanting to be built, and we had a lot of you switch as costs are going up, some of the duplexes are saying, hey, I'd rather use carts, and they want you billed through the district. I don't know that we have a process in place that requires them to have those services and what that would be, so.
Yeah.
Since it's kind of brought up, because I think I felt like your question was twofold, that was the note I wrote, because that just came in my mind last week, so maybe that's something we add for a future agenda with staff. I can get Newports and what they did with those straggling ones, but I think a couple things would happen. When we're doing the required route reviews, the state, the lid flips, our team goes out there, if they notice there's not 3 containers out, they would come back, we look on their card, does it look like we delivered it, they had it one time, have they called for anything, or we asked the driver, we can pull video to see, do they ever put out a cart, maybe that one day they just didn't put it out. But I think that we determine what's the process, or what's the board's desire to require them to have the service, because they're paying for it, right? It's a bundled service, they're paying for it, they're just not using it.
Do your drivers pay attention, or do they have like a sense of their routes, which ones are not using the cart?
I think it's twofold, they do, I mean, we could probably ask them, hey, if you identify the customers on your route, our greenways or organics cards, our tonnage is very heavy, so, you know, we have a lot of people that use their organics cards, even if they're not using it for food, they're definitely using it for their greenery, you know, for still their yard trimmings and stuff like that, but, and then the recycling, that's the other part is, I would like to do maybe some participation, when we have drivers that maybe go on light duty, let's say they get injured or something and they can't drive the truck, but they can be a rider in the truck, that's when we usually use them to do audits for us. That might be something that I do, is to have them look at, see, because my other concern is, I'm not sure if you're all aware with Recycle from Home, or us having OCC opening back up. My concern was, we implemented the 3-cart system right when OCC's Recycle Buyback Center opened up again. And I hear from a lot of people, if they don't recycle, they say, oh, why, I don't use my blue card anymore, because I take my stuff to the buyback center, or they have Recycle from Home. Well, that's only CRV rebate material. there's so much other stuff that people should be recycling, and I've heard that from people, oh, well, I just go to OCC, so I take my cardboard and my bottles and cans. What about all the other stuff that you should be putting in there? So I'd be interested to see how many people are not possibly participating in the recycling program.
So they're
But we're
putting,
seeing this in other cities, and I actually just had to see a Testament reach out to me and say, you know, how do you feel about this program? They said, I feel like it hurts recycling because of what I just mentioned.
Well, and also, I don't think they know that we pay $17 a ton for blue card, and we pay $80+ for landfill and organic cards. So then, you know, and there's huge savings using the blue card. Which indirectly relates to what we have to charge.
It does, all those materials, when we process and we sell them for, you know, beneficial use and recycled material, that helps offset our costs and keeps our costs down.
you've seen folks not putting it in the blue card, they're putting it in the landfill card, because they don't want,
Cause they,
Oh,
yeah, why don't we use it? 'Cause I
they're not gonna haul out a third
Mhm,
card,
yeah.
right? When we do the source separations. Have we seen that, does Mike see that there's a lot more in the landfill carts when they do that?
Conversation with, I'm curious. If we're seeing more recycles add up, but then Mike wouldn't know, it'd have to go back to that, excuse me, have to go back to that audit I mentioned, kind of seeing what's our set out participation rate on the recycle cart and see the two correlate.
Right.
Cause he wouldn't know that, so he wouldn't actually know if that was tied to what I was doing.
Excuse my ignorance, but does Orange Coast pay for cardboard?
Yeah, they do,
They do?
yeah,
I think, well, no, I
What do you do with your cardboard?
I take my cardboard when I have excessive cardboard, because I have only a 35 pound blue card. And, you know, I still cut I cut the cardboard up and that little blue card does not hold much.
So,
And
in good times, cardboard, so there's not many things, plastics, there was very little cost per ton, it's a wash, but it's not a disposal cost. But still, aside from the CRB materials, paper, mixed paper, and cardboard still can sell for about $200 a ton. That's it when times are good. So that's why these facilities will still also accept cardboard, because there's some money to the person that takes it and sells it after they pay for it. In large quantities, obviously, and you're not gonna get a whole lot for it, but you're gonna get some.
I just get
and you didn't get anything?
Get money for it.
They didn't tell you?
No, they just have one, it's a great program for them, because. In Huntington Beach, they have 3 guys working the cart system, you know, that put the cans in each separate bucket. You got 3 guys sorting and they're going through, pulling out stuff that shouldn't be in there. At OCC, you only have one guy that takes the weight. And that's it, he doesn't look what's in it. So they're probably saving money by having one guy work instead of 3 or 4 guys work, sure.
Yeah, we have in our facility, in Stanton, CRT, we have a buyback center. And I mean, the amount of trucks coming in, I think they collect a lot of cardboard from businesses or others, or they borrow it out of their containers and they bring it in, and so, no, it's like I said, roughly it's about $200 a ton, so they would weigh in and pay them accordingly based on the material.
Well, I walk a lot in the morning and I see pickup trucks going to various facilities to pick up the cardboard. Does that, it's a sales,
So our latest audit report was good news, actually. It was saying that Costa Mesa is successfully recycling almost our goal. And that number has been moving positively, which was great. And I think that makes sense, because I do think, like what we're all talking about, it takes up a lot of space, so it's it's nice to have that separation. And then where we're struggling is organic waste. So food and green waste, and having them actually sort, I think at the moment that they are throwing their trash away in their home is like the biggest behavior change we're gonna have to work on. And that's where I think we're declining at that point. So I think for me, I'm always trying to think about like the regular person. like the normal busy renter, the main postmates or whatever, homeowner. Who likely doesn't have the time to drive stuff to OCC. But I think it's like. It's almost like we have really good like radicals that are really on top of it and they're really, intelligent about it, and then you just have your normal busy people that like, we're still just trying to cut through the noise. Before we have to resort to like punitive measures, so,
But I think, I don't even reading, I see it on social media, or I've read a few, in the paper, I know Huntington Beach just went to penalties. What's gonna happen is the state's gonna require us to do it. They're not meaning the city and CRNR, and they have the jurisdiction by the district. So I saw some friends that I went to high school at, used to live in Huntington Beach, moved to Texas, and she still follows her local stuff, and she's like, good old California, and that's why I read the article, that she, so Huntington Beach started charging for people putting the wrong thing. Waste Management's been doing it for quite a while. I just saw another post the other day that they said, you kidding me? I had one box, I had no more room in my recycle cart, and they put it in the trash cart, and they don't do physical route reviews like we do. We have the human that's still going, lifting lids, and then that way hopefully they can talk to the resident if they come out and say, hey, what are you doing? Oh, we're required to do this by for the state. We just want to make sure we help you, how to properly source separate. But Waste Management uses cameras in the hopper of the truck, so once the material goes in, that's what means the whole process is very extensive, and then it goes to India, and India has to sort their own pictures, and they charge it back to the account. But she posted it yesterday on her page that if you saw this one big box that was not broken down, but just a solid box that she put in her trash can, and she posted her picture and her invoice, and they charged her $35 for putting that box in her trash can. The legislation says that the cities need to be doing this, but they haven't been pushing the jurisdictions or the districts yet, but it is time.
I got a question. We had talked about, we used to get a percentage from OCC for recycling. Did you talk to them if we're gonna still get that?
We don't have any interaction with them at all, yeah. And now that they sold, and actually they're being run by the company I mentioned, I just think about it, that recycle from home, I have no idea.
That recycle our homes running the facility.
Are they required to know what's, like if I go in, then they can be, are they required to know which city it's coming from?
Yes, anywhere you go, they're supposed to ask, where is your material coming from? So the city gets the actual, at least diversion credit for that material.
If we get that person credit back from LCC, because they're much busier now than they ever.
I don't think it necessarily works in that way where they can give us the credit. They're reporting their data to CalRecycle, and then I assume CalRecycle is putting that into their tonnage numbers, but it's not something that we would actually take
Well,
back.
we used to get it, right? OCC. We used to get it, and why couldn't we get it again?
I think Mike Carey again.
Well, I think since it's a private company now that's running it, I don't know that it would work the same way.
Who would get the credit for that?
The city overall.
Yeah, I think so.
Just the city as a whole.
Right.
Ultimately.
And the district, as far as I understand, even though you operate the residential program, still everything rolls up under the city. You don't have one separate, you directly to CalRecycle.
It's like the Mount Bar credit.
But as a whole, the whole city with residential commercial is meeting the state target.
We sort of got off track to liquidated damages, so let's see if we could reel this back towards the topic. Anything else from you guys? I mean,
No, just looking to see if the board has anything they want us to change, look at. If not, we'll take what we have here. We're still working with CRR on kind of finalizing a few things. And then we would run that through their legal counsel, our legal counsel, and then bring that back to the board as a
you
contract.
guys are on track for everything.
Yes, so, yes, you have we reduced into the liquidated damages?
I think we did.
Are you asking on the red line if anything was reduced, or?
Anything that of the liquidated damage, anything that's been reduced from this last year.
Under the public outreach fund, we went from $100 a day to $100 in incident. Right?
Yeah, on that particular one, there wasn't really a way to, you couldn't really look at it as how many days behind are you, it's either you did it or you didn't, and so we made that adjustment, right?
So that's one. I kind of agree with that, Director Perry. the 250 seems onerous to me, but, it's not my business. I mean, you guys have done your due diligence on it, agreed to it, so.
Yeah, that's really one more question. What's the lowest of the liquidated damages in that case? Like, instead of 250, you have some that are lower?
Most of them are around 100. That's
That makes more
typical
sense.
standard is 100.
I don't care about Newport Beach, I care about us. I would like to see this, you guys meeting it or.
I don't think I would do that.
It's gonna be a.
Up to the-
And I can supply that information with the different cities and the tables to staff.
That would be my recommendation, drop that 250 to 100. It's, it comes in 4 reasons.
So my opinion on it is, I would be comfortable in using lowering it for future instances, but what I don't like is that we committed to a number in the contract. Then when the contract is.
No, that's,
Right,
I think we have.
Right, we wouldn't do retro.
And I agree with that.
Yeah, there's, I even supported retroactive,
Okay, cool.
because it's what
Oh,
always,
but I would think that, when does that come about? Yeah.
well, it'd be.
So anything we're reviewing currently for the year and a half will be based on the liquidated damages as they stand in the contract. for the new
My
year.
recommendation, future, we can just do it. I don't know if we're in a position to do that.
I think it's just a recommendation.
You can have a recommendation to take back all of the feedback. and then
That would be my
incorporate it.
recommendation.
Wow,
Well, and I think the second part of this performance requirements to the vendor is that we not tinker with them over their COLA. So their COLA comes irrespective of their performance.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I'm kind of struggling with that too, like we are always giving the increases, like we just did with our increases with the county. And we're doing CPI increases on pretty much an automated schedule. However, liquidated damages is not receiving the same treatment.
It will, so previously
Okay.
it was done on a calendar year basis, and it was very hard to take half of the year at the current rate and then the other half of the year at the CPI adjusted rate. But because we're transitioning to this fiscal year schedule, for the next fiscal year, we'll be able to actually make that CPI adjustment and then these will be
Yeah, okay,
increased.
I like that,
And those fees do get adjusted by CPI.
perfect, are they capped?
No.
Okay. I think. For me, just speaking out loud with you guys, I'm kind of torn of like, what is our responsibility here? Is it to the customers? And recollecting those. Like literally the liquid value of a damage to our customer, right? Like our staff was yelled at over a $5 spilling. I think that's kind of a dramatic reaction, but I'm glad that we have something to counter for that. So I'm kind of torn of like, our responsibility is to be good partners. And they are the boots on the ground in so many ways, right? So we want to be fair, but also. In a way, I view this as like this protective measure to rebuild that trust with customers when something went awry. And I don't know where that is, you know, when
I
we're
think that we're going the right direction. I know that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know.
I have a question,
Yeah.
maybe because, I'm still kind of new to this, but these liquidated damages, like per instance, per home. They feel really arbitrary to me because I don't know what like an annual number of instances is, so for example. See, one that might be kind of like. Okay, so for each failure to clean up solid waste, recycling material, food waste, organic waste, it's $150 for each after 5. So, but like how many? Because $150. That's not, if these are liquidated damages and in a way, it's kind of meant to be punitive because we want them to perform to a certain standard. What's $150? Is it $150 times 2,000 occurrences?
Yeah.
Or is it 5?
I think that data was presented to the solid waste data and I think. I think Marissa presented those kinds of numbers, so I think you could bring that
So as far as like the items under section.
It's not a specific section, it's like the whole thing has her.
Right, so but just for an example, the items under section A that we're looking at, that's what we're working with CRR to develop, like what should the standard be? Because you're right, we don't wanna just choose arbitrary numbers, and so we're evaluating those, to say. What is the average, what are other agencies doing, what can we actually hold them accountable for, and so if you want us to look at. The number per occurrence for the other items, we can certainly work with CRR and evaluate. Do we have the right metric here, or do we need to make an adjustment?
And what information would we be getting from CRNR to decide that?
They'd be looking at kind of like, what do you act, like, for example, how many spills are we seeing per month or per year? And kind of what is the standard, there's certain standards for a certain percentage, you know, is considered acceptable, for example, and
So
so.
we get outside data on standards and.
So yeah, we're not just taking CRNR's numbers, it's just that's one of the factors that we're considering when we're trying to say that.
Sure, I'd like to get that from CRNR and from some sort of wider industry standard, so we're not just getting information. That's right.
All I would add to that is that, so every phone call that comes in, I'll tell you that our numbers are always higher than either of the district has. So every phone call that comes in, customer service rep is required to enter an order in the system, and everything's coded. So we have a spill code. If it's a missed pickup, it's called MIPU. So everything is coded and they're required, and that's tracked for training and coaching. So every phone call requires some sort of a note on the customer's account. So whether it's a missed pickup, they report a spill, it could be a driver complaint that they maybe thought the driver was driving too fast. Everything is coded system, and then we extract a report and data, and then we submit that data to the district on a monthly basis. So that is stuff that comes directly from the customer, and like I said, it's always higher, because the majority of the customers for that service, they call us directly. Some go through the GoGov site, but most of them call us directly, and that can never be erased from our system.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what you mean. Are you saying that there needs to be a reconciliation between your data and her data?
No, not at all. You have to use both, because some people, the districts just haven't, our other cities don't, no one calls the city, they all call us directly for everything. But for the district, they've had this GoGov system for a while, so some customers use the district's GoGov system. They can call, or they can go online and say they have a missed pickup, or they can request a card exchange, or they can go through the district's GoGov website, or people can come to us and we do live chat, AI, live chat, email, or customer service phone call. So the district, and Marissa mentioned, she has to compare both the data, and a lot of there is duplication, because sometimes they'll call the district and they'll call us, thinking, well, maybe I should call them also.
I'm still not quite understanding. Are you saying that the numbers are going to look inflated because there's duplicates?
No, we get an account, for example, just looking at this pickups, we get an account from CRNR. Their missed pickup account includes anything that's been reported through GoGov. So we can eliminate those duplicates. But if we get a complaint that we're not putting through GoGov, if it's like an escalated complaint, we're just reaching out directly to, for example, the operations manager, and it's not put into GoGov, we have to make sure we're adding those to their account, but we are eliminating any duplicates.
So you said the numbers that need to be reconciled, and you said
They're reconciled on our end. CRNR just provides their data, and then we look at their data in combination with how we're tracking like escalated complaints and things like that.
So you're saying net at the end of the day, the district has correct numbers on all of these incidents.
Right.
That's
It's pretty well fed. I think we're in the issue, about maybe going, so this is all right. Because it's an ad hoc committee, we still have to find this.
I think once we have the opinion back from Alan and we work with CRNR to get that final iteration, maybe we could have a meeting just to finalize it. I don't have a problem with that, you, or Scott. what do you?
I'd love to keep this conversation going, I mean,
You will.
yeah, understanding more about that, the greater context, I agree.
I out of this study, a couple things that hit me that I want more information on. The valet service. I'd like to see the number.
We actually just got them. We have only one customer signed up for valet service currently, and I think 34 or 35 signed up for the rollout, which is the no fee service.
Okay, so maybe I'm thinking the rollout, that's one really designed for.
For seniors, right, that's the one that would be part of, recently promoted in our newsletter, and we did an email blast, but we haven't seen any new sign-ups since.
Okay, the valet we charge,
Valley's $40 per month.
Yeah. okay,
What's the difference between valet and rollout?
Valley is a paid service, so if you don't qualify for the no fee, you can pay $40, and then the rollout is, if you can provide, just like a doctor's note, then you can have that service for free.
So you have 35 calls for that.
We have 35 currently signed up for it, but we haven't had any new, sign-ups since we sent out the newsletter.
that's interesting.
Yeah, I was surprised also.
So I can use my driver's license, it shows how old I am and qualify for
You
rollout.
need a doctor's note, unfortunately.
All right, good discussion, thanks for your input.
Thank you.
Solid waste fund reserves.
Alright, so I'll take that one again. So as of July 31st, the solid waste fund has a balance of approximately 5.8 million. Of that, 2.9 million is unrestricted and available for board allocation. So that 2.9 million represents reserves above our 30% operating reserve target. So staff has identified 4 general areas where the board could consider to choose to direct some or all of those reserves. So number 1, customer education, which includes things like expanded outreach, school assemblies, and composting workshops. Number 2, contamination monitoring and compliance. Number 3, service enhancements, which includes things like lockable carts and compostable bags. Or number 4, solid waste rate stabilization, which would minimize future rate increases. So the board could choose to prioritize one category, a combination of categories. If you don't like any of the categories, you can come back with more. You're welcome to suggest additional priorities. So today, staff is seeking the board's directions on the priorities overall, and then any specific programs you'd like us to move forward with. So to assist with that discussion, there's some questions that we're asking. Which of these 4 categories should receive highest priority? Should available reserves be allocated to any of the specific programs in the staff report? Approximately how much of reserves should be retained for future rate stabilization or other solid waste fund needs? And are there any other priorities or initiatives that you'd like us to explore? So following your direction today, we will evaluate costs and implementation approaches for each of the items, and then we'll come back for additional recommendation and consideration.
So that would be the grade 5s, part of that money would be grade 5s. Remember we
This
talked
is
about
for solid waste,
solid waste.
Oh, wait for me.
Yeah.
sorry.
We are seeing.
I'm gonna hit lead off on this. I wish we'd have had this before we did the rate, the 218. I wish we had these numbers. Maybe I missed.
So this is being presented during the rate study, based on the rates that were presented, the options that were presented, there was going to be a kind of abundance of reserve funds. And so part of that discussion was that we would come back once the rate was set, and get kind of an action plan from the board on how we want to send out.
And I'm not levying any criticism or any judgment here. I firmly believe that if we have this kind of money and based on landfill increases and all that, I would like the majority of this to go to rate stabilization. That's my opinion. I'm only 1 of 5, but the other component, and looking through this, talking about school assemblies and I've always championed, I think, the fact that I think kids are where we get the biggest bang for our buck for the future. So I'm a big proponent that we use funds for school assemblies, outreach at that level, as well as with older people. But those would be my 2 biggest priorities, would be as much as we can towards getting rates stabilized, or I'm not calling for a reduction. I don't think we can, but I think we need to make sure we don't have any big increases.
So for clarification, majority, I think we need more clarification. Majority, are you saying 70%? 55%? What is majority to you?
Majority is anything over 60%.
Okay.
So I would say 60%.
Okay.
Towards rate stabilization would be my thought. just me.
A question on school assemblies, is there a cost for that? Do we put those on, or do we bring somebody else?
No, so we would go through a contractor. I did include some information for one of the options, that we'd like to explore. That's something the board wishes for us to do, the Eagle Hero Show. So there is some kind of per assembly, per presentation, additional cost included, but it would really be at your discretion. You would say, we want to spend X amount of dollars, we would give that amount to the contractor, and then they would perform assemblies up to that point. So it's really, you have the flexibility to decide how much you want to spend on something like that.
Wait,
Do we have a good relationship with the school district for having assemblies? Because that's the biggest headache.
Challenge just to make sure we're getting a hold of the right people, but the good thing about these programs, similar to Discovery Cube, is we give them the list. We do kind of some initial outreach to let them know that it's coming, and then that contractor really takes the lead on reaching out to the schools and getting everything scheduled.
Are we still working with them, or is that?
That contract has concluded, so we are looking at maybe exploring an alternative option, and then if you elect to do that, we can explore an alternative option, and then maybe compare the two and
Did
see
you evaluate that program that they present?
which one, Eco Hero or Discovery.
So,
Yeah, on an ongoing basis, they would provide us with data on the presentations performed and the feedback that they were getting from the
do
classrooms.
you know how many people or how many schools they represent?
I wanna say that it was like a little over 3,000 students that were
Did she say like,
impacted, but I need to go back and look.
did say like 30 schools or something?
I honestly,
I wrote not the 34.
I don't think it's that many schools that were, like schools, it might have been 34 classrooms, but it might have been like multiple at one school, yeah, yeah.
Inherently, the problem would be this Discovery Cube is they do have a relationship with the guys that drive the green and yellow trucks. And I don't know if that conflicts with any. Thing we have.
So they're promoting general education, organics and recycling,
So
and
they don't
that's
specifically do that hauler.
no. And we actually did ask them to include our cards, so our cards were actually part of the presentation,
Okay,
so that wasn't an issue, as far as we're aware, yeah.
Nicole, there was about.
My question is, what do we spend now on, these, the 2.9 million is broken down into Discovery Cube, Recycle Coach, and what do we budget now for,
So a lot of these items are not anything that we budgeted, like the school assembly, that was a one-time grant funded program, I think we allocated about 30,000. Composting workshops, walkable carts, providing compostable bags for customers in excess of what we're doing now, those are things that haven't been budgeted before, so those would be kind of new programs that would be.
so what do we budget?
So that's what we're asking,
That is-
how much do you want us to allocate to, what are your priorities and how much do you want us to allocate to those
And so you
priorities?
don't allocate anything more of what we're granted the grant funds?
For school assemblies, we only did that one-time grant funded program, so we don't have school assemblies currently in our budget.
So we get grant funding, 150,000 or whatever it is. Of the 2.9 million. Does our budget contain any of that 2.9 million in ways to be expended? Or is it?
So these are unrestricted funds, so they're, to my understanding, they're not being allocated towards anything, they're unrestricted. The rest of that 5.8 is allocated towards expenses, but this 2.9 is not, is unrestricted.
Well, I think Director Wright brought this to our attention, needing more, potentially more in customer education. And I think staff is doing quite a lot. I see many more things on the Facebook page or on the Instagram page or, lots of stuff all over the place. And I'd be interested in, well, I think I have to go back. The citizen survey gave us a lot of information about what the citizens' preferences were. And is that what staff is now using to, dedicate the grant funds or other funds?
I don't know that that's being used to dedicate the budget, I think that's probably informing our education and outreach, so we're looking at that and incorporating that into our plans. But our budget is currently set, the grant term is ending in a few months and that will be fully expended. So we're just looking at things we wanna do kind of above and beyond what is currently budgeted, and if you want us to allocate any of these funds towards programs that are not currently budgeted.
So the grant fund is like 150,000, or depending on the year. It's-
So that is, to my knowledge, that is the last SB 1383 grant. I haven't heard of any plans for any new grants, so right now, once that's expended, I'm not anticipating any additional grants.
So the 150,000 or whatever it is, grant is not gonna be available to us in the future.
No.
Okay, so that's the starting point. Out of the 2.9 million, we're looking at, if we duplicate those programs, 150,000.
If that's your, it's totally up to you how you wanna allocate, and for example, we spent 30,000 on the school assembly program with grant funds, you don't have to allocate that specific amount, it can be more, it can be less, it's just kind of whatever your priorities are.
So what I'm thinking, we're getting substantially more citizen awareness, you know, by using those $150,000 funds or whatever it is. I think that this should be a topic that's discussed in the new ad hoc committee. Because I believe Director Wiltshire and Director Wright have substantially more ideas about how we can approach the community to systematically get our goals achieved. And so I think we need to go back and decide, and maybe the committee can decide this, what our goals are. Is it the landfill part, the recyclables in that? Is it the organics in the recycled part? That's 1383 question. So, and the organics part is not, and the recycled part is not. So I think that should be at the top of the list. I mean, what's regulated and regulations require us to work on. Well, we have a 75% goal for the landfill part. I think the money should be, a lot of money should be spent in figuring out how to get those contamination materials out of that part. And it doesn't sound like it's gonna be a lot. We're just starting out of the chute. There's no way in hell we can spend $2.9 million. So I think it'll substantially go to rate stabilization because it's gonna take a year to ramp up. The spending plan. It's not overnight. We say we're gonna spend $100,000 on figuring out how to get the contamination out of the landfill cart. It's gonna take years to figure out and implement the processes that we want them, the citizens, to do. So we've got a lot of money left over for rate stabilization.
So we went from majority to substantial, Scott.
But it sounds like you're asking us to dedicate at least some of the funds towards outreach and education. Obviously, it'll go to the ad hoc for how, but.
So let me, I've been trying to help clarify. So I'm looking at our budget, 26-27 budget. We budget $105,000 in community outreach in the solid waste fund for this year. That doesn't include $105,000. Okay, and from what I understand from what I got from the board, you want us to go over that based on this unrestricted fund of $2.9 million. You want to spend that much over $100,000. How much more over $100,000? We don't know. We're seeking clarification. Now, what I'm hearing from the board is that you want to go maybe probably 60-40. 60% of that $2.9 million we pay for rate stabilization. That 40% we'd come back with you with some numbers on how much that would be for outreach efforts. And as Marissa identified in the staff report, that could be lockable containers, that could be the home composting program, that could be additional bags for residents, that could be more advertising, whatever it is. We can bring that number back to you, but That's what we're trying to get some clarification from the board.
Yeah, and I'm looking to you guys to tell me 60% is just my shot in the dark. That's
Mhm.
not, I'm not locked to that number. If it's 50
No.
or 40, I mean, whatever we can
So-
realistically use. I'll tell you right now, lockable carts doesn't make sense to me.
No, and
It
it's-
doesn't work. Giving people compostable bags, I'm not in favor of that. They can go to Bonds or Stater Brothers and get them themselves. I don't think we should be giving out recyclable bags. Some of the others I'm still mulling, but those are two that just. I mean, $245 for a lockable cart. That is something that,
Nonsense, in the survey said 61% of the people do not want car wrap.
No, they said they won't want it if they have to pay for it. If they got it for free, I bet they'll
they
change their
wanted,
mind.
yeah, that's right, they wanted it for free.
I'm not sure how the survey said that.
It
My
did.
interpretation
It
of
said-
it-
No, we said, will you be willing for it? They said, yeah, and then we said, would it be fun? Then they said, no.
Yeah.
So if we said, no, it's free, I bet they changed the law.
51% of the people won't pay for it. And I don't think the amount of recycles we lose. It's hit,
Yeah.
I mean, we catch five recyclers, scavengers a month. And and they're on bicycles and carts and dragging bags.
Yeah.
It's nothing. So we spend way too much money looking for 5 scavengers a month.
By the way,
Yeah.
whatever we're spending so that I can see Bob Wooten on ESPN every night. Do we pay for those ads?
The Spectrum, the
Yeah,
streaming.
yeah, I think it's money well spent, they're good commercial. And what I'm getting to is you guys have always had really good judgment as far as I'm concerned on what we spend on those programs. So a continuation of those that's not over and above what you're already talking about with the 100,000, I assume.
The grant funds.
Oh, we used to grant funds for those deals. There we go.
For what, I'm sorry?
For the commercials on ESPN.
Partial, yeah.
Okay. Shane.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right.
First,
Wait,
I'm ready to jump in.
Wait,
I'm-
the
I'm-
time limit.
I'm chomping at the bit. Okay, first I just wanna say fantastic step. So this is really good. This is, I think a really good start and we've documented everything we talked about. I wanna bring your guys' attention to the financial review section and staff report. So. Five. Which shows us where the reserves are gonna be at the end of our current increase, because. We did look into supplementing via reserves, and we did do that. We just went conservative with it because right now we're gonna lose money on our increases every year for the next 5 years. So really, if we want to do, and we know we're gonna have to do an increase in 5 years again. We just, and it was Bob actually who said it's way easier to take it all out than to put it back in. Cause then we're looking at what profiting off of increases, which we don't wanna do. So the way I realistically look at this is if we want to have money left to supplement our increases in 5 years, we actually have less than 1.6 million to play with right now. So right now, if we wanna leave, so let's say over the next 5 years, we're gonna be supplementing. What total is this? 150, 260, 410, and 560? We're pulling about 560 grand or more from reserves over the next 5 years.
You're saying cumulative of what's in the staff report?
Yeah, I roughly just, right?
The shortfall number.
So planned uses of reserve shortfall is over the next 5 years, we're supplementing over $500,000. Let's say we even wanna be more aggressive with that. And the next time we do a rate increase, we wanna supplement 750,000. Okay, well, that means we have about 900,000 to spend over the next 5 years. We can either start with a big jump and then taper that off, because then maybe the state is gonna force us to find people, whatever. But to me, that's the number is, okay, at the end of this, if the most we spent was X amount, we wanna make sure we have $1 million, right? Let's give ourselves a cushion, we wanna make sure we have $1 million to supplement increases via reserves. And even then, guys, I'm hesitant to say every 5 years we're just pulling from the reserves because eventually there will be nothing left. That's concerning to me. So no, I don't wanna spend $2.9 million. We've already agreed we're gonna spend 560 on rate stabilization for the next 5. So that's already out the door in my head. Because it's not gonna get replenished. Because we're losing money. And then I wanna leave at least 750 to $1 million for rate stabilization by 2030-31. So then that gives us our number, okay, over the next 5 years, we maybe have 200,000 a year to play with. I don't know if it, maybe high level as a board member, it's wise to just stick to something like that rather than super going into the granular of like how it would split, because the way I see it is our needs are evolving. It's really great that we do these audits because we're learning that people are listening. And they are changing their behavior, and then we're also gonna figure out where they're unwilling to change their behavior and where we need to push a little more.
And so you said 200 a year for education and out, that's what you're saying, right?
For any of these programs that go towards the goal of our diversion rate goals. To me, that seems like the imperative goal. I'm similarly not as concerned about recyclables getting stolen, for example. I'm more concerned about before we start charging people for not sorting their parts. I wanna know that we tried everything we could and we threw everything at the wall to change and motivate them. And you know, it's funny, like, because we are, I'm just gonna use this example with organic waste, because we are struggling there and behaviorally it's going to be such a big change for people. Funny enough, I'm almost more comfortable with putting our money into trying to get them to have kitchen pails, and maybe the kitchen pail comes with the compostable bags one time, rather than, hey, for the next 5 years, you get $3 on your bill. Like, to me, I at least want to try to change their behavior as much as possible before I give them like a small incremental discount over time. And then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, you know, then we move on to the next great idea. So yeah, I feel like the big thing to really talk about is like the rate stabilization. That's how I'm thinking about it. I'm not looking at the money we have now, because we already committed to putting over 500,000 into the rate stabilization. I'm looking at the real number we have is the number that's left at the end of 5 years from now. And maybe we go conservative, which would be about, you know, $150,000 to $200,000 a year, and then. So I'll just pause there, then I'll get into like the ideas in the actual staff report, but what do you guys think about that? Does that kind of clarify how I'm thinking about the balance?
They're saying keep a higher rate stabilization, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying we kind of know how much we want to have left in 5 years,
So that's
at least
what
$1 million.
You would know if you kept up 100% of the rate stabilization money, not spent on anything else, that's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, we know we will have 1.6 million left.
I know it could be greater if we don't spend that extra money.
Yeah, at most it will be 1.6. At a minimum, I'm saying I think $1 million. 750 to $1 million is fine. And that's actually, it could end up being more if certain costs aren't incurred, right, or CPI.
Right.
So
Or
when
it's like liquidated damages.
Are you suggesting to wait until the end of the 5-year term, look at that 1.6 and then see how we can use that to stabilize for the next 5-year rate study? Is that your suggestion, just why you can?
Yeah, because what we're saying, look, you already have a 5-year plan, right, to increase the rates. I think next year is 9 years. What we're saying that maybe look at some of this money that's unrestricted, maybe instead of a 9% increase, we can do a 5% increase. You see what I'm saying, by using, offsetting that cost through this rate stabilization.
I mean, I'm happy with the results of our most recent study and our current 5-year plan.
So you're,
I don't-
you're okay with the 999, you don't wanna lower that at all?
No, I'm happy with where we're at, I don't want to
Okay.
deplete our reserves anymore as of now. What I wanna make sure is that when we get to the end of 5 years with additional investment into education, outreach, schools, trying to change our customers' behavior, I wanna make sure we have at least $1 million left. So when we look at the plan that they gave us with several different ideas, I'm saying over the next 5 years, let's spend 600K. Leaving us $1 million in reserves that would go towards rate stabilization. What is the percentage increase of $1 million over 1.6? I'm guessing if that's a. Look at that, it's 62%. So it's about an alignment with what you're thinking, right, as well.
Or could be higher than 6.
Yeah, for the sake of compromise, we could start small, right, we can start with $100 grand a year, then that's only $500K over 5 years.
I think the percentage, I think it's better than that.
And then as far as the actual like substance of where the spend would go. Obviously I'm a big supporter of outreach and education, I think it's way more nuanced than even like a broad category, which is why we're doing this ad hoc committee. And I think we'll be able to come back to you guys with some real like data-backed ideas that have goals associated with them. A section on here that isn't included, I think, is the actual like physical representation on the bins themselves, like the stickers on the trash cans. I think they're provided by you guys with QR codes, like just the actual physical interaction they're having with their trash cans. I think it's a big one. Obviously, I love investing in the schools, even that I wanna think a little bit outside the box, so. And then, yeah, if organic waste continues to be like. Our leading indicator, if that's where people are struggling, then diving more into the kitchen pails, composting. Education there, but to me that also basically overlaps with public outreach. And then. Contamination inspection. That seems to me that it's already gonna be built into like our existing compliance. Yeah, it's already gonna be mandatory, and then unfortunately, it's gonna be required that we find people, so I'm not really thinking we need to spend more there. Agree with you guys on lossable recycling carts, I'm not really worried about people's recyclables getting stolen, no further up there, it's true. So yeah, that's how I'm thinking about one, the leading indicator here is like. We are currently stabilizing the rates for the next 5 years. How much money do we wanna make sure we have left for the next time? And then what's at least a minimum amount we're comfortable investing more into for our diversion goals over the next 5 years? To make sure we still end with that $1 million in 5 years.
So what you're saying is keep more in reserves rather than give people $3 off their bill. That's my understanding.
I'm saying right now we are already giving people. Discounts by putting some of our reserves into the cost of our services, and we're actually gonna be losing money over the next 5 years. That was intentional, we planned it because we have $3 million. So what we have to do is keep in mind the number we'll have left in 5 years, which is 1.6. So we don't wanna spend, it's kind of like working backwards, like how much do we wanna make sure we have in 5 years? So we're gonna have to raise the rates again, right? We wanna keep trying to give them a discount without depleting our reserves all the way, because then we have to start rebuilding them back up.
Right.
Or then we just have money left for nothing.
So your goal is to have $1 million in reserves and use that 600 for.
Yeah. But if they even wanna have a little bit more of a cushion, maybe I was saying 500, because then that's kind of a clean 100 each year for 5 years. And at this point, I think it's also more about like the quality of the work, which you and I can make sure it's good quality versus quantity, right? Got like consultants. Consultants will spend 100K real quick, but I mean, we can get something good done for however much you guys are comfortable with.
And also, I think that given the recent study results saying that we are getting much closer to recyclables, our goal for recyclables. I think that we should probably establish just to like establish expectation for the rest of the board. That probably a lot of the stuff that we're gonna be talking about in the ACWA committee is gonna be related to organics. Because that's the number that we want to raise. I mean, so things like, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but like lockable recycling carts, we probably wouldn't put a lot of discussion into something like that because it's not as much of an issue as it was before.
Well, I think I would like to leave room for, what's the word, the variability of our results informs our outreach and our spend and what we're talking to people about and what we're planning into. So, and we see that seasonally even with, Christmas time, Christmas trees and move people are moving, all that stuff, so. But that is even more, I think. Staff responsibility, it's our responsibility, high level, to be like. This is the money we want left for this purpose at the end of the 5 years. This is what can be worked on. Also, I mean, we're not even thinking about what if everything goes right? If everything goes right and people do successfully change their behavior in 3 years, then we can always say, all right, we're willing to pull back on public outreach and spend because it's clicking. Or they're getting fined by the state now. Or required by the state for us to find them, so I think eventually we may even see an inflection point where. Behavior will be forced to change. And then we can reserve that, we can just put that final 200K for the last 2 years aside, that it'll just not get allocated,
Well, what I think ought to be done is, in preparation for the ad hoc committee to meet. And I'd like to know when their first meeting is, and I think it's, in my opinion, it's as soon as possible. Is to go over the citizen surveys. And I believe CHC that should be one of the priority items for their 9/9/26 meeting. My suspicion is there's a lot of new members, CHC members, and they don't have a clue about the work that we've done in with survey. And that's the emphasis on the top items that would make recycling easier in the survey were magnets, the recycle coach, social media tips, and recognition, and I think, report here somewhere, recognition for people that are doing well or areas that are doing well is mentioned. They want collection containers for their batteries. 69% of the people want collection containers. I don't know how far we've reached with that. And my problem with the collection containers, it only says take them to Huntington Beach. It should also say take them to the schools. Give your neighbor the batteries and those other schools benefit from those battery processors. And the mail and email are the preferred ways that citizens want to get their input. Text is way down the list, websites way down the list, social media posts are way down the list, public events and meetings are way down on the list. And I also have as I looked at the citizen survey, 95% of the people want the information that we provide to them in English. 5% want it in Spanish. So we're spending 50% of our media coverage on Spanish and English penetration. And that's way out of whack with what the demographics show for the citizenry that we serve. So I would say that we need to rethink that policy to where, so we can recover some of the space that goes out in the quarterly newsletter. It shouldn't be half Spanish and half English. It should have a marker on top that said El Pablo, whatever the Spanish thing is, to show the people that only understand or what Spanish, where they can go find it. And then we recoup 50% of the space that we are talking in the newsletter to people for what we want them to do or to educate them or whatever. Anyway, thank you for letting me talk.
We're always welcome to talk.
Yeah, I think it's gonna, yeah, I think joining the, having the committee. As soon as possible is the good way to go.
I think we're waiting on this, the September space meeting, so they'll, like, there are 2 people, and then yes, we'll try to get it done ASAP.
That's the line, yes, but
So maybe like late September or something, depending on everyone's availability, And I guess I wanted to clarify, like, we really just need to show we have a working plan, right? For the reserves, that's the true, or that's like the administrative purpose and goal of this. I wanna say this is not going to be written in stone. Like, if things change, if things get better, if the state is harsher on our customers. This can absolutely evolve and pull back. But I think roughly maybe like 100K for this year and next year would be a good place to start, and then we can at least have it in writing, hey, this is our plan, we want $1 million left for rate stabilization at the end of 5 years, and then we're planning on spending about 500 to 600 over the next 5 years into SB 1383 efforts and investing into educating customers to try to get their behavior to change through a myriad of ideas. But if that's kind of enough to keep to give ourselves that strong answer of why we have these reserves, yet also then internally staff can sort of start working on some ideas based off of the ad hoc committee. I think that relatively meets all the criteria we're trying to hit. What do you guys think about that?
So the committee work on it.
Yeah, yeah.
do you have what you need?
I guess my question is there a consensus, that we do not wanna do anything with the reserve towards rate stabilization for 5 years? Is that consensus among the board, or do you want us to come back and show you what it would look like if we were to not raise the rate as much as we're anticipating for next year? Do you want that information, or?
I don't know what consensus is, but I still firmly believe that we need to have some component of rate stabilization on that money. I understand the numbers and, if we increase our public outreach by another 100,000, it still allows us, historically, this board, since I've been on it, has looked for ways to lower rates, excuse me, to keep rates affordable. We've always been committed to being better than the average in the county. $3 doesn't sound like a lot, but I guarantee you there's ratepayers out there that $3 means a hell of a lot. So I still believe that we need to keep some component, like you said, Scott, over the 5 years with rates. This reserve, once it's gone, I mean, we have money coming into this reserve account every year, don't we, Caitlin? Do we have some component that comes into this that accounts for these reserves? It's not like we're deleting it over the next 5 years completely.
No, over, like, Director Wright said, if you look at the financial review over the next 5 years, based on the rate study that we just approved. For fiscal year 26-27, the end of the year, we're projecting $100,000 in deficit. And the reserve above the 30%, the target, 30% above is 3.1 million. So over the next 5 years, let's say if you want to break out the 500,000 for the next 5 years, addition to what's already in the rate study, then it'll be negative 200,000 for the planned use reserve, the shortfall will be negative 200 in fiscal year 26-27, and then 156 in fiscal year 27-28. So by the end of the 5 years rate study, you'll end up with 1.1 or 1 million. So it's not like we're depleting reserve completely, and how we're getting more money in is from the rate study, from the rate that residents are paying, the rate pay.
Yeah, so if we don't profit, right, how do the reserves get built up without, is that when you do, okay, so when you do the Prop 218, you have to justify why you're profiting, and that would be to say, we wanna reach our reserve goal, or is it only from unexpected revenue incomes, like liquidated damages typically?
It could be from investment earnings, it could be savings from unspent money, like you plan in your budget to for 100,000 in outreach, but you only spend 100, half of that, so then that's where the savings come from.
I guess like the consultant did show us a range of 3, it was 4 scenarios, 3 were more aggressive into this, and because we already went through that whole process and decided on this one, that's my hesitancy to not wanna do it all over again. But then also my question would be like, what would be a good goal you think to be able to stabilize future rates? Right, like what is a good amount to chip away at over time to leave some in the future versus going more aggressive now? And then,
I think that's really hard. To narrow that down to that, based on the surprises we got, I mean. It was totally out of character to get the landfill increase, I mean, that was so far off the rails that. If we have another situation like that going into the next 5 years, it's gonna be challenging. I mean, it's gonna be really challenging. So I think trying to look that far ahead, as much as I'd like to, is gonna be really, really hard.
Scott, what do you anticipate the rate will be from this county?
Well, the landfills are gonna continue to go away. And until they come up with an alternative to the landfill, where it's gonna go, to me, that's the unknown factor that we can't plan
Well,
for.
before we were negotiating with the county, they were projecting tipping fees to be over $100 a ton.
Yeah.
And so because we got involved with the city managers and negotiate with them, we were able to stabilize off a little bit. I mean, it's still going to be up to $81 here in about 5 years, but trust me, it'll be over $100 eventually.
yeah. I mean, maybe that's why the efforts for diversion are becoming basically heavy-handed, is they see the writing on the walls, these landfill spaces.
On that when we start doing penalties, do we get to keep that money?
We should.
I wanna say 80%, similar to additional card revenue, we retain 80% of that revenue, so if CRR were to issue I think contamination, then I wanna say more than 80%.
Okay, so CRR gets 20.
Yeah.
Nothing goes for managing the program, except, but none of that money goes to the state.
No.
Even though
And that's great, that's gonna be great for hopefully stabilizing costs,
so I guess.
even though people will hate us.
So I guess the point is, we don't do any education. we let people continue in traffic and we make a lot of money. And I do that completely facetious, I'm not, right?
No, I think that's a valid joke even, of like, do we just let people let it blow up in their own faces, or do we have a responsibility to try to help them before they get their hands slapped?
Well, and I
Yes,
guess
100% have a responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's just so that everyone is clear, we 100% have a responsibility to avoid finding residents
Yeah.
for government services.
And I will say that process isn't like a one-time
I-
contamination and you're fine, you get education multiple times
Yeah.
before.
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
out.
What's the last money?
No, they have no one to blame but themselves once they really don't.
The fact of the matter is, and I've seen this many times and played out in many different ways. These citizens have, in the programs that we, try to train or educate people, they have to see it 3 times
Yeah.
before it registers. I was driving through neighborhoods to pick up my wife when she was a professor at Santa Ana College. And I had to see the sign about, go slow through these neighborhoods because there's children here. And when I saw that the 3rd time, then I paid attention to it.
Yeah.
As an insurance agent, I paid attention to who's out.
No,
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
really have
voters
to.
have to see your name 7 times on average to know to vote for you, so you're definitely right, it's a game of numbers. Cool, I mean, I love exploring these sort of philosophical debates with you guys.
Well, we need some direction from the board. And first off, I think what Director Wright mentioned is I want to kudos her to what she said, because what you just demonstrated is, it was good governance. You're having a dialogue about discussion, asking questions, and it's a great model for other districts to see how good governance works. So I commend you for doing that. Thank you. But I have one board member who says that no, keep the rates increase as we approved, and I have another board member who says no, let's use some of the reserves to lesser those rates, whether 5%, whatever. What does the board want us to do? I need some directions. I got some conflicts on this board, so we need some direction.
You wanna vote?
I don't necessarily need a vote because it's, I don't know, but just give me, what's.
Well, I think you guys should call that question over in the ad hoc and come back with a recommendation.
That's what I.
So that would be a kind of a separate item, so we're looking at, in addition to education and outreach, which I'm sounding like the consensus is we do want to dedicate money to ed and outreach, but we need to know how much, or do we want to dedicate any to rate stabilization at the same time, and then we can look at the hows and what's of the ed and outreach and the ad hoc committee.
There's going to be more money left over for both these processes, rate stabilization and whatnot. Because staff has to be and is conservative in their budget. So I don't know if it's 5% more or what the
Might get
number is.
revenue from the funds.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's like, if we think that the rates are for sure gonna go up in 5 years, then I wanna know what you guys are comfortable with reserving for those. Like, how aggressive do we wanna plan into those? I think answers that question.
At least 60%.
That's about $1 million.
Once we find out there's another huge increase like the county put on us, we got time to change the rate.
Yeah, we'll have to.
No, I mean,
We have a
yeah,
6-year
we'll-
plan, 5 years with a 6-year plan, right?
5 years.
5 years, so we have time to see what develops.
And also, we're gonna do our solid waste rate survey, citizen survey, I think, we do them every 2 years. So once the ad hoc committee and the board decide on where we're going with this processes, that those questions should be put in the citizen survey
Yeah,
in a meaningful way, so we get some.
and this time it'll include our renter customers, so we try and reach out to them too, so. Maybe we'll get some more accurate answers on the languages too.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think I've have some direction what we can do. We'll present, so I mean, is the solid waste ad hoc committee is gonna be meeting again too, right? So we have the solid waste ad hoc committee and the public outreach committee, right? So, okay, I think what we'll do is we'll present to the committees, if we're gonna, let's say for next fiscal year, we're gonna consider lowering the rates instead, or increasing the rate instead of 9%, we can look at 5%. And how much money would that come out of reserves? We'll share that with you. And then whatever's left over, we can spend, I think you want to spend $500,000 additional on outreach efforts. Is that right?
For 5 years.
For 5 years.
Plus 0.1 million for rate
Yeah.
future rate stabilization.
Okay, so we can, and we'll come back with some programs with the numbers too. I think it's good for you to see the numbers too. You need to see the numbers and see where that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, I think. To draw, if you're drawing for a consensus, I think there's really two factors that out of all of this was a good report. This was really good. But I think out of all of it, education and rate stabilization are the two areas that we're asking you overall, no matter what numbers we use, those are the areas we're asking you to focus on. By the way, Echo Hero, when you click on it, did you notice that it's almost completely yellow and green?
Oh, yeah, they have a lot of yellow, bright yellow and green.
So,
Have to change the color.
yeah. So you guys,
Yes, we're clear.
okay, thanks for the discussion. It's really, thank you for your work, so
Thank you.
appreciate it. And I'm sure the numbers lady had a lot to do with this too, so Caitlin, thank you.
Oh,
Well, I think general manager is a little.
And
What?
all right, any oral communications and any directive comments? Okay, so we are, board meeting, make sure to public
August 31st.
knows that it's postponed a week. Board meetings was postponed to the end of 20.
The 31st.
Oh, wait, 31st?
Yeah, it's the week after the conference.
Oh, yeah.
The 24th meeting is now on the 31st.
Yes.
I did not have.
Okay, so we'll adjourn to August 31st.
Thank you.
Thank you.